But I have the honor to talk, now that we built the foundation, and we built the walls and the roof, next is can anyone guess? Rooms, yes. What's a building without the rooms, you know? Like, have you ever been in a building that just is like walls? Like, there's nothing in it? Well, that's a good point. I actually never thought about it that way. But yeah, a house, like a building without rooms is so weird. It's just a box, really. But yeah, I have the honor to talk about the rooms. And the rooms, I feel like I had a hard time kind of like writing my message because every time I wrote something, it just didn't feel right. So I honestly had to sit down and just say, God, what do you want me to talk about? What do you want me to say to these students? Because like I kept on writing stuff, but then I'd pray about it and it wasn't right. And finally, I found, like, after praying, I was able to find something that I think is really meaningful, not like to me, but I think there is something to be said here, and that there is something happening here at Cornerstone. And if I could just ask for 10 minutes, it's gonna be fast because I want to do something special in small groups, but just 10 minutes of your guys' time, and just put away your phones, kind of turn away from your friend if they're distracting you. But I really think God has something here. So if you guys have your paper Bibles or don't bring out your phones. I just said put away your phones. Don't bring them out. But if you have your paper Bibles, turn to John 14. And a little background with here. Right now, before what I'm about to talk about, it's the Last Supper, and Jesus just kind of predicted the betrayal, and he predicted Paul denying him 3 times, and now the disciples are kind of freaking out. They're like, "Wow, you just gave us some depressing news." So he comforts them with this verse here. In John 14, verse 1, it says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe in me, also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I'm going there to prepare a place for you?" And so right there, you can kind of see where I'm going to go off of the part that says rooms. Pretty obvious, but I want to go over that 14:2 real quick. "My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you I am going to prepare a place there and prepare a place for you?" When I read this, one thing kind of stood out to me. This whole series that we've been kind of talking about, with the rebuild and building our lives on Christ, one important thing that kind of popped out is that this building isn't ours. It clearly says that this is our Father's house. This whole time that we've been building something, we've been building it for Christ. We've been building it for our Father. And that we do not get a say to who lives or doesn't live in this house. Because we ourselves are just people living in it as well. This building is God's house, and we are just people living in it. And we are one of the many people taking the rooms. And it says there's many rooms. There's so many rooms. There's so many rooms that there's enough room for everyone. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. Because there's enough room for everyone. That means that anyone. That means your friends, your family, your brothers, your sisters, the people that you argue with, your enemies, they all have a place to stay in this house. And I kind of look out to you guys, and I see a lot of new faces right now. Before 2019 or 2020, most of you guys weren't here, and I feel like this is a perfect opportunity to tell my story about me. And you're going to hear this word testimony a lot, and testimony basically means your story. When you go to trial or anything like that, the judge asks for like your testimony. It's basically an account of what you saw, or like a story about what you saw or what happened. And in Christianity, we use this word as an account of what Jesus has done in our lives, a story about what he did in our lives. And this is my story, starting from the very beginning, when I was first born, a wee little baby. I was born actually not in California. I was actually born in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is weird. Like, who has kids in Vegas? Like, that's a weird place to be from. Like, I forget that I'm from Vegas, but yeah, so I was born in Las Vegas, Nevada. Quickly after that, we moved. I didn't move because I was a baby. We moved over here to Cali, and about when I was 2, I would say, was when things started to like change in my life, big changes. When I was about 2, my mom and dad were having marital issues, and they decided to split, and quickly after that, my mom remarried to a new person, like very quickly. And because of that, because of like her marrying someone, she moved in with him, and my dad was left to take care of me and my 2 sisters, and that caused my dad to just work a ton. Like, he literally worked. Most of my memories with my dad as a baby, like when I was a baby, not my dad as a baby, but when I was a baby, were of him sleeping because he had to work so much. So I barely remember being with my dad as like a child. And I also, because of all like the marriage and everything like that, I had to move constantly back and forth to both families. Like, and to me as a kid, I didn't really know what was happening. I thought I was just going on a ton of car rides, but like little did I know it would affect my life so much later on. After that, when I was about 8, my sister moved out, but then she had to move back in because she got really sick, and that kind of caused my world to change once again. So when that happened, because it's super expensive to live in California and have a bunch of rooms, my family decided that both my dad, my mom, and my stepdad would all live under the same roof. Same with both me and my sister. So you can imagine the kind of like intensity of like that situation. And so from there, we all moved back together, and then once again, like, it became hard for us to live under one roof, so we had to move to somewhere cheaper, and we had to move to this, like, to Beach and Slater. And if you ever been to Beach and Slater, like the neighborhood there, don't go. All right, stay away from there. Like, but on Beach and Slater is the ghetto. Like, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I grew up in a rough neighborhood. No, this was a bad neighborhood. Literally, like, we open up the garage and it's like the gangs hang out that's there, and they have like their couch and all of their drugs in there, and it's disgusting. But it was literally a terrible neighborhood, so bad that our house was like roach infested. I don't know if you guys ever seen roaches, like had a roach problem, but it's terrible. Literally, like, sometimes at night I would wake up, turn on the light, and I would see the whole floor move. And it's not supposed to do that. Like, why would a floor move? But yeah, it was like a terrible area to live in, and so we lived there. But during this time, my mom began to develop a medical condition called DID, or it started like progressing and getting worse. And if you don't know what DID is, it's dissociative identity disorder. So meaning she literally was different people by night. She would be like an 80-year-old grandma, and then all of a sudden move to like a 12-year-old schoolgirl. Then she'll move over to the mother that my sisters knew. Then she'll move over to the mother that I knew. And you can imagine the difficulty it is to be raised by a 12-year-old or raised by an 80-year-old grandma that doesn't even recognize you. And then at the same time, she began to develop a drug addiction to all of these crazy, insane drugs that that sometimes just blow my mind when I think about it now. And even after that, like, I thought, all right, this is bad, but can't get any worse. But very, very soon after that, my sister met someone who wasn't a good person at all and ended up marrying him. And this guy would abuse her and was also like a drug addict as well. And he honestly stole from me. I remember I had one of the new smartphones, brand new. Super stoked on it. I was in 5th grade. I was super hyped. I felt like the coolest kid in school. One night I went to bed and I woke up to grab it and it was gone. Instantly, my dad assumed that I lost it, so he gave me one of the flip phones that you buy at 7-Eleven. And I had that thing for about 2 years, and that thing would not break. I tried to break it because he said if I broke it, I can get a new one. And it would not break. It was a brick. But yeah, this guy stole from us. He abused my sister. He was actually the one supplying drugs to my family. And once again, my world just kept on getting flipped upside down. And it got so bad to the point where everyone in my house was fighting. My dad was working all the time, and I barely saw him. He would work when, like, at night, once I got home from school. He would be at work until I woke up, and he would take me to school. That was the only time I would see him, was him picking me up from school and taking me from school. And I remember one day I came home and, everyone's fighting, everyone's screaming at each other. I just went to my bed and I just cried. I literally cried until I fell asleep. And it wasn't the first time I did this. I was feeling so broken and so hurt. I felt like it couldn't get any worse. Yeah, it still got worse. When I was about 12, I was staying at my sister's house because they wanted me to get out of that whole situation. And I woke up to possibly the worst news of my life. I woke up to my sister and my aunt just bawling, saying, "You need to get dressed. Mom is gone." From that point on, I felt so alone. Things like depression and suicidal thoughts began to just rule my brain, rule my life. I was at the point where I was nearly homeless, living with both my dad and my stepdad in a house in the ghetto on a mattress in a roach-infested place with no power, with no heat. And right then I began to think there's nothing that could help me. There's nothing that can ever change my life, that can make it better. I literally knew exactly how to make nooses. I knew how to kill myself in every single way. That's what I was at. Yet someone stepped up. One day after school, I'm walking to my class. My friend says, "Hey, I know you're going through a lot. You want to hang out with me? Go hang out with me and a couple friends." I said, "Yeah, sure. I don't want to go home. I'd do anything to be away from there." So we ended up hanging out, and he brought me here. He brought me to these doors. And little did I know that moment would change my life forever. The moment I stepped through those doors was the moment that I felt like I was at home. The moment that I stepped through those doors was the moment that I felt truly loved. I remember standing right here, just ready to end it all. But something was telling me, no, there's more to life than this. So I stayed and began coming more often and being here as much as I can, just because I knew there was something here that was drawing me in, something that was changing my life, that was making all the pain and suffering that was happening at home worth it. Later that summer, I made the best decision of my life. I gave my life to Christ. That was a decision I would never turn back on. Because the moment that I gave my life was a moment that I really felt like I was at home. I really felt like I was taken care of. It was a moment that I found my room in this house. See, everyone has a place to stay in this house. Everyone, no matter who you are, no matter what you grew up with, no matter what you dealt with. I've had so many conversations in the last week alone talking to people about how they feel like they can't be here because of their past, because of what they've done, because of what people think they are. But none of that's true. It says our Father's house has many rooms, so many rooms that there's room for all of us. Not one person has the same room either, which is so amazing. But when I made that decision, when I was invited here, God was waiting for me with a room. He was waiting here for me. There are rooms here that are waiting to be filled. There are rooms here waiting to be filled by your friends, your families, your brothers, your sisters, even the people that we don't like. They have a room here. They have a place to stay here. So my question is, why don't we fill them? Why aren't we filling these rooms? And I had to kind of step back and think. But I think a lot of it is that we get into this mentality of church is my thing. Church is my thing. Like, I don't want to invite anyone to church because that's mine. Like, if I invite that friend, you know what? If I invite my friend, Joey's going to like him way more than they like me. If I invite that friend, all of my friends there at church are going to want to hang out with them, and they're going to forget about me. They're not wanting to spend time with me. I'm just going to be forgotten. But what's so great about our Father's house is that He's customized each room individually for us. We each have our own special room that He's handpicked, hand-designed, that He's put into place for you. And no one room is the same. He took time on your room. He took time to carefully handpick every detail in it. He has a plan for you. He has a purpose for you to be here right now. Yet we still freak out and we get scared that, you know what, if I invite that person, he's going to forget about me. When He's already thought every detail, every plan in place. You are God's masterpiece. And don't forget that. He wants you here, and He's made a room for you to be here, and He's made a room for your friends to be here. When my friend invited me, I don't think he invited me because he knew I was going to be a pastor, or that he knew that I one day would be running the middle schoolers. He invited me because he knew there was a room here. He knew that there was room to be filled. There are friends in your life that are looking for a place to stay. They're looking for a place, and we have the room. I know right now because of social distancing, it may not seem like we have the room, but we will make room for them. We will make room for them. And I want to talk about that real quick. Sometimes we don't fill these rooms because there's other things filling this house. We've filled this house with junk, with things that don't belong in the house. our rooms are messy, our lives are messy, and we continue to fill it with all these things. We're hoarding all these things that aren't going to bring any satisfaction to us. We filled it so much that Jesus has no more room to move. Have you ever tried to walk in a messy room? It's very difficult. My room gets messy all the time. And then the moment that I can't see the floor is the moment that I know I have to clean. But we need to make room for Jesus to move in our lives. There needs to be room for Jesus to move in our lives. We fill our lives with this junk, and we say that our lives are so filled and so occupied that when Jesus opens our door, like opens doors and opens opportunities, we say, I'm too busy. I don't have time for that. Just wait until after I do this, because then I'll do it. I can't do that right now because I'm not in a good place to do that. I think it's time to do some cleaning. I think it's time that we do some cleaning in our lives and make room for someone who needs a room. There are people that need room. They need a room and they're looking for a place to stay. We all in this room were once someone that was lost. Yet someone stood in the gap and said, come with me, come to church. Whether it's your parents, whether it's your friends, someone stood in that gap. So why can't we stand in that gap? For, I think, like 4 or 5 years now, we've done this thing called open house. And it's basically the time to bring your friends. And we've been building this house so we could show it off and open it to others, to show people their rooms that are made for them. Because who knows who you're going to invite next? Who knows what God's going to do in their life? There are people that are broken and hurting just like I was. I literally was down on my knees asking for something to change in my life, and then God sent someone to stand in that gap for me. I'm pretty sure we all have that one person in mind. I know for me, every time I say that I need to invite someone, there is one person that pops up to my mind. Cornerstone is a home for everyone. Cornerstone is a home for the broken, the lost, and the hurting. Cornerstone is a home for you and your friends. Cornerstone is a home for your families, for your enemies. But they're just waiting for that invite because they don't know it's open, so we need to open our doors. So open those doors. Start inviting your friends. Start letting them know about God. Start letting them know about what Christ is doing, not only in your life, but what it could do in their life. Who knows what he's going to do? So you guys can stand. We're going to go into a time of worship, but we're going to go into small groups after this. And I purposely made my message shorter because I want to spend some time. I want to spend time praying for those people, praying for those family members, for those friends, for your brother or your sister or the enemies that are in your life. I want to pray for them. I want us to, in small groups, to begin to pray for those people that we are gonna invite next week. Because they all have a room. They all have a room in our Father's house. There's so many rooms to be filled. There's so many rooms to be filled.